If you've watched any of my videos over the last year, you know that I'm a big proponent of using things like password managers, two-factor authentication, private internet browsers, private search engines, credit freezes, and so much more. But when you take away the security software and hardware, what is the one security habit that you and your family could start doing that could mean the difference between losing tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, or not getting scammed at all? It's simple, it's obvious, yet it's a habit that most people don't do. Here's what I mean. My name is Josh, and this is All Things Secured, a channel dedicated to helping you protect your accounts and your identity online. Let me start by sharing with you the kind of scam that's really common right now, and it's also completely undetectable by any antivirus, anti-malware, or VPN software that you might have. These screenshots come from a sports commentator in the UK who shared them on Twitter. Her mom had received a simple message saying that she had to get a new phone number and to go ahead and delete the old one. This is from, supposedly, her commentator daughter. Well, after a bit of chit-chat back and forth, the person posing as the daughter asks for some help paying an online banking bill that she's having trouble with because of having to change over to this new number. Now, perhaps you think that you're smart enough not to fall for this kind of scam, but what about your parents? And what about that times when you really do need to make an odd request? For example, last month, there was an American here in Thailand. He was selling all of his stuff and returning back to his home in the US. He asked if there would be anybody willing to purchase his Thai baht here and send him a check in US dollars when he landed. I figured I could save a few bucks in exchange fees and wire fees, so I told him that I'd buy 100,000 baht, or roughly 2,500 US dollars at the time. Believe it or not, I still have one book of paper checks that I keep just for stuff like this, and I leave it with my mom back in the United States. So I sent her a text asking her to post a check for $2,500 to a specific name and address, explaining the reason for the random request. Now, the only real difference between these two stories is that one is a scam request, while mine was a legitimate request. Another big difference is what happened next between me and my mom. You see, I'm aware that these kind of scams target folks like my parents' age, and I don't want them to fall prey and lose their money. So our family has a policy in place to help protect against these threats. After I sent my mom that text asking her to write out a check, I followed up with an email confirming my request, and then I called her just for good measure. It was good to say hi, but I really wanted her to hear my voice to confirm the authenticity of my request. This is the one habit not only do you need to put into practice, but you need to teach your parents, your grandparents, your children, your loved ones to also put into practice. It's simply this: verify elsewhere. So in the case of the sports commentator's mom, what do you think that means? If you guessed a phone call, well, you'd be partially wrong. Unfortunately, it's way too easy, particularly for the older generation, to get fooled by a voice on the phone that sounds kind of like your loved one. A better option would be a FaceTime call, or connecting via a different messaging app such as Facebook Messenger if you use that, or Signal, or some other app. The important point here is that by building this one habit within your family, you can avoid some major problems down the road. Verify elsewhere. And by the way, this is true even for businesses. If you recall from a while back, Shark Tank investor Barbara Corcoran's firm almost got scammed out of 400,000 US dollars using a business email compromise scam that could have been avoided by verifying elsewhere. The scammers were able to hack into the firm's email system and create an email address that looked very similar to Barbara's assistant. I think it only had one letter difference. They then emailed the bookkeeper with an invoice that needed to be paid immediately, which of course was a fraud. You see, the best of these kinds of scams are made up of very plausible stories. They're also usually a lot harder to spot in the moment than you realize. Why? Well, because verifying elsewhere means that you need to ignore the pressure for urgency, and that's hard. Usually these scams involve some kind of urgent situation or time-based threat that makes you feel like you don't have time to verify, but you do. You always have time. So find a way to create this habit among your circle of friends or your loved ones. Verify elsewhere. It could be an email, another messaging app, a video call, whatever. Just verify elsewhere. Well, I'm glad you made it this far in the video. If this was helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more online security and privacy tips. You can also give it a like if you want. Oh, and by the way, since we're on the subject of scamming, take a look at this video next where I break down the best method that I know of to spot a scam email.